This is Bruce Whitfield's Business Week. It's powered by Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Business without the boring bits. It's a weekly wrap of only the most important business stories from the world of money and finance on News 24. Each week, we will share just what you need to know in order to help you understand and better navigate a deeply complex, a very confusing and massively uncertain world. We've got money, we've got markets, we've got millionaires, we've got megalomaniacs and everything in between. Bruce Whitfield's Business Week, the podcast that respects your time and your intelligence. It's all you need to know about what's happening now, and the one thing that really matters this week that will still matter a year from now. Now, we do want to hear from you. We'd like you to send us short voice notes, about 20 seconds or so, any questions or comments that you've got on our dedicated Business Week hotline via WhatsApp on 072 562 3179. You could do it just like this person did in response to our first show.
Are there going to be sanctions on key politicians and even maybe the country? There's a very concerning article in the Wall Street Journal about possible sanctions.
Oh, and also, please, if you would include your name, it's nice to know who we're talking to. So, great question, great point. WhatsApps to 072 562 3179. And we'll certainly put that question and that point to Zwelakhe Mnguni from Benguela Fund Managers in a few minutes' time. The JSE this week breaching the 100,000 level on the all-share index for the first time ever. Happened on Wednesday and again on Thursday morning, a psychological level. The JSE up 18% so far this year. The Dow has recovered from the first quarter trade tantrums, and the FTSE 100 on Thursday in record-breaking territory too. So markets are certainly having a very good time despite the news flow. Have you ever tasted toffee with a touch of chili in it? That was the first and remains my favourite from the Darling Sweet Company, which was founded in that little west coast town of Darling in 2013. And the town, of course, made especially famous by two of its most celebrated residents, Pieter Dirk Uys and Evita Besaidenout. And I don't mean to spread rumours or untoward rumours. I suspect Pieter and Evita have got something going on. I think they live together. But that's another story for another day. Fritz von Reinefeld is the co-founder of Darling Sweet. What possessed you, Fritz, in 2013 to start a sweet business in what was an antique shop?
Well, Bruce, why not? We live in a wonderful country with opportunities, and Darling is a lekker Maldorp, so anything can happen, as Study Rita has proved. I had an antique store and I saw so many tourists coming through wanting to take a present home, and I thought a sweet offering could be a fantastic option, as Darling has got the meat, it's got the wine, it's got the beer, but it didn't have a sweet offering. Toffees, I thought, could work because you don't really get traditional toffees as we did when we were small. And there's a lot of other confectionery options, so toffees worked.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because toffees feel like 1950s, feels like Enid Blyton, but then so does Darling in a way. So it fits nicely.
Yes, it does fit nicely. It does work. Well, Darling, if you ever visit Darling, it's a crazy dorpie, but also a normal, traditional old dorpie. So toffees does work very well. And the town is linked to dairy, which is one of the main ingredients of our toffees.
Did you abandon the antiques almost immediately, or was there a segue? Do you still sell antiques out the back and toffees out the front, for example?
Bruce, we sold everything we owned. So we sold all the contents of the antique shop, everything. We sold my car. We started buying pots and a cooker, and I'm converting 24 square meters of the antique shop into a toffee shop. So we really sold everything we did to get this going.
And do you make more money out of toffee than you did out of antiques?
Yes, we do. Darling Sweet does keep us busy. The money part we're still working on, but Darling Sweet does keep us busy. And it helps us. One of our main aims is job creation. And that definitely helps us because we've got 33 people working for us now. In the antique store, it was only me.
And it's really important, isn't it? I mean, one's got to make money. You say you're still working on it, and that strikes me because you're 12 years into the project, and no small business ever feels secure. So how have you diversified from just the toffees? Because I would imagine once you get into food production, it becomes not easy but logical to have diversification in the portfolio.
Bruce, we're a bootstrap company, so we really started with what we had, and we grew it organically. Henty, who's my partner in the business as well, he's very much a focused individual, and he's our recipe developer. So that grew organically. We launched the toffees, we launched with 3 flavors, and then we did a lot of markets and people asking, why don't you have this toffee? Why don't you launch that toffee? And we grew the toffee range. But a lot of people concerned about their teeth would ask us, but why don't you launch something soft? So in 2018, a natural progression happened that we've got the toffees, and then we launched a range of soft caramels. So, which is interesting because it didn't impact on each other, because you still get your people who want a hard toffee, and you get a market who enjoys a softer option. From there, last year we decided, well, fudge is the next big thing for Darling Sweet, because that is a logical progression. It's the same ingredients, the recipe differs, and it's a totally different offering, even though it's still related to each other.
I don't know where I've seen your product, but I feel like I see it everywhere, which is wonderful for your branding because it suggests you're getting out there. But you sell through, I think, 3 primary channels. You've got your online store, you've got your physical outlet in the tourist town of Darling, plus you've got third-party distribution. What percentage of sales happens in each one of those categories?
So we've got a countrywide distribution network. We've got a wonderful sales team, agents, and we very much focus on supplying other stores and other shops, independent shops mostly, as it makes sense for us. You need to go further afield than Darling. So I would say about 70% of our business is to third parties. In the physical store, it's about 15%, and we recently launched a new online store, darlingsweet.co.za, and that is also, I would say, like 15%.
My dentist says thank you very much. She's incredibly grateful to you because you give her business. Third hand, but you give her business.
Our toffees have saved marriages because you take you have to suck on a toffee. You don't have to attack it. But pleasure to the dentist. Pleasure.
Fritz van Renneveld, who is the co-founder of Darling Sweet in the not-so-big metropolis of Darling. Well, here's something you probably don't know about me as a one-hit wonder a long time ago. And I mean, decades ago. Fresh out of university, and I was working in my first ever newsroom, where a colleague on the overnight shift that I was working in those days suggested I chat to his wife, who was a casting agent for adverts. Now, at the time, working overnights, I finished work at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I went off, I grabbed 4 or 5 hours sleep, went for an audition in such nice hotel room somewhere. I was very brave in those days. And that afternoon, I got a call that I was hired and I was to report to a theatre on Louis Botha Avenue in Johannesburg, having memorized a 30-second script. And it started, and I remember the beginning, I remember the end, the middle is a little vague. But it started off saying, these days you have to know what you want out of life. I do. And then it went on about how I don't have time for a headache, and then ended with, Comprel is my headache tablet. It works as fast as I live. And that ad ran for 3 years, including, I was told, played at the interval of the Rugby World Cup in 1995. Now, the chief executive of the company that makes that tablet, as well as other household staples like Panado and Corenza C, is Andy Hall, the chief executive of Adcock Ingram, with the news today, Andy, that you're getting a big new shareholder who is going to buy out private shareholders or minority shareholders, and the firm will leave the JSE. What's the detail in that?
Yeah, Bruce, thanks. And thanks for that intro. I'm glad to know that you're a loyal Comprel user. Personally, I prefer Panado. It's much softer on me than Comprel.
I can no longer disclose my personal preferences. I can no longer do that, but that was, I was paid money to say it, so I did a long time ago. Anyway, what's the deal entail?
Let's chat about the deal. Yeah, Natco Pharma, a listed company in India, has been a minority shareholder of ours for a few years now, but very low on the shareholder register with less than 1%. And they started talking to Adcock Ingram about a year ago, less around an acquisition, but more around a partnership, because what we've been looking for some time is a generic, globally vertically integrated partner for our generics business. And those discussions were sort of on and off for a while, and we did manage to conclude some dossier discussions with them. And then that managed to evolve late last year and in the early part of this year to Natco talking to our controlling shareholder Bidvest about the potential of coming in as an equity partner. And that's all evolved into the deal that you see on the table that we announced yesterday, effectively Natco taking out our minority shareholders at a very attractive premium of 75 Rand, which is about a 50% premium to our 30 and 90-day VWAP. And at the same time, delisting the company and staying on board with Bidvest still being the majority shareholder. Bidvest will own about 65% and Natco would own about 35%. So for us, it's an exciting deal. We think it's a big vote of confidence, not only in Adcock Ingram's people and its brands, but in South Africa as a whole. 4 billion rands, a sizable investment in our healthcare sector.
And the advantage here is, and one of the great problems, and we felt it during COVID, is that India is a source of so many of the active ingredients that go into our everyday medicines. And when global supply chains broke down in every respect, but including in medicines, it became very clear that, if you've got a solid and steady supply of these active ingredients, you're better off than those that don't. Was that a key part of this discussion in terms of the security of supply into the future for Adcock Ingram?
Bruce, you're right. Security of supply is a big issue, particularly in these emerging economies like our own. And we often see it with vaccines and the like, where these big companies tend to focus on markets where they make their margins and markets that are more important to them. Certainly, it wasn't a consideration in our discussions with Natco, but there's no doubt that partnering with a company that operates in more than 50 countries across the globe, manufactures many of its own active ingredients and most of its own finished formulations can only be a win for a company like ours when we eventually get registrations and dossiers through SAPRED, the regulatory body. So, the benefits for the generic business are not immediate. As you know, there is a regulatory process that needs to be followed, but certainly we will be looking to register Natco's products in South Africa.
Okay, so that broadens your portfolio as well as give you some of those active ingredients that can be in short supply from time to time. Now, Bidvest, I thought, was going to take out minorities and become the 100% shareholder in Adcock Ingram. That was the talk at one stage anyway. I wonder whether Bidvest is a long-term shareholder in Adcock Ingram. It doesn't feel like a comfortable fit for the company that puts the soap in the toilet, in the soap dispensers in public toilets and provides security guards at the airport and loads the luggage onto the aeroplane. It's a services business, not a manufacturing business, really, is it?
Yeah, I guess to some extent that's correct, Bruce. Probably, a large portion of their business is in services, but they do have a number of consumer-facing businesses. They have a large automotive business. They have a very big branded products business that services the consumers directly. And our view when we've spoken to Bidvest is that they've always been a long-term investor in Adcock Ingram. They like our brands. They like the fact that we're a big player in the market. And their indications to us have always been, even during the discussions on this deal, that they definitely aren't sellers. And I think if Bidvest was a seller, this might have been the opportunity for them to potentially talk about that, but that was really never on the table.
Andy Hall, the chief executive of Adcock Ingram. Big announcement, an Indian listed company buying out minority shareholders of Adcock Ingram, delisting it from the JSE. Bidvest stays calling the shots.
Why pay more for business banking? Does your account come with a private jet, a 5-star lunch, a butler named James? Didn't think so. At Capitec, you get the same low fees as personal banking, so you always know what you get and what you pay. Open your account in minutes and save up to 50% on transaction fees. Visit capitecbank.co.za to get started. Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Capitec is an authorized FSP. 46669. Conditions apply.
Oh, and if you want to tip us off on a juicy tale or share information you think we might find interesting, you can email businessweek@24.com. Businessweek@24.com. Helena Basserman is the business editor at News 24 to help us identify the one thing in the news this week that matters most and will still matter 12 months from now. Just a passing comment, if you would, Helena. We'll pick up with Zwelaki in a moment, our market commentator. But yeah, the market has very quickly dismissed the negative news flow from around the world as the JSE is at 100,000 yesterday, well, on Wednesday, and 100,000 again on Thursday. It feels like we're finding a new level.
And the rand's at 17.50, almost the best level in a month. I think this week, for South Africans at least, turned out to be much more kumbaya than we thought, with the budget being passed in a very painless manner. GNU still intact. It's basically all Ubuntu all the time, baby.
Well, for now. That's interesting because it is my imagination, I thought initially, and then watching the market, realizing that this week has actually been a very business-friendly week, at least from a political perspective. The DA getting its way with the higher education minister and therefore agreeing to pass the budget, and the finance minister agreeing in future to become more consultative on the budget process and the way in which the budget will be structured in the future. This is the check and balance as citizens I think we want to see when it comes to not getting the knee-jerk 2% VAT increase that we nearly got handed by the ANC earlier this year.
Absolutely true. And we're also seeing other signs as well. I think the Competition Commission's U-turn on the Remgro-Vodacom deal is an important milestone. New labour legislation that's currently in the works that will relax some rules around dismissals, although it will double the cost of retrenchment payouts from 1 week for every week you work to 2 weeks. So some movements. The approval of the Canal Plus multi-choice deal, and some interesting movements on media ownership.
That's big, isn't it? It's quite big, Helena, and you've got a lot of detail on this in terms of this white paper on ownership, who's going to be allowed to own what proportions, because for so long, a bit like the airline industry we talked about last week, foreign ownership of media is very restricted, and there is a shift, but with a shift comes a consequence. Explain it.
So basically, it's going to be a much more relaxed atmosphere for local media owners, right? So, as you mentioned, the limit on foreign ownership will climb from 20% to 49% on South African broadcasters. You'll be able to own as many TV licenses, TV channels, or radio licenses as you like. In the past, there were strict restrictions on how many radio licenses.
That's a big change.
Yeah, how many FM licenses. Now, FM, AM, all in the mix. If you're a newspaper owner, you can own a TV channel. If you're a radio owner, you can own TV channels. It's all open for everyone on the local side. On the international side, that's where it gets a bit trickier. There's definitely a move towards a clampdown on the large global players. The new white paper suggests an ombud, for example, that will make it easier for South Africans to complain about content on YouTube. They will bring in YouTube and some of the large streamers into the South African sort of licensing arena, it looks like. And government will try to make it tougher for Netflix, Disney, Amazon Plus. They'll They'll get local content rules just like the local broadcasters have. So it will be interesting to see.
Sorry, I look at this and say, hold on a second. You've got a global platform, and the reason the global platform is cheap and efficient is because they've got a recipe and a mechanism that works. And you want them to tailor-make content for the South African environment that complies with our rules? It might not be worth their while to do so, Helena. They may very well say, well, then, terribly sorry, we'll Starlink you, or whatever the phrase is.
I mean, you're right. But also, we spoke to Netflix. They're engaged. They have some suggestions of their own. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out.
I certainly will. And again, before you get too excited, by the way, of having 100 new radio stations to listen to on your FM transmitter or however you listen to radio nowadays, be well aware that there's a very limited amount of bandwidth available or frequency available for new radio stations. The change of ownership rules simply means that one company could end up owning 5 different radio stations in your city. That is what could happen into the future. It's a big thing, the one thing we need to worry about, and I don't mean to get boring on trade because trade has always been quite a boring subject, but it is the epicenter of everything that we're dealing with, and we've got a loud ticking trade time bomb building unless we can make a deal with the United States on the 30% tariffs they want to charge us. We're running out of time on this one, Helena.
We've got a week, and we now know that government, as far back as June, submitted a revised offer to the Americans. We're still waiting for a response. It's now clear that we need President Ramaphosa to call President Trump with some supersized offer with extra cheese on top to prevent those 30% import tariffs. If you look at the 5 countries that have already clinched deals, some of the common themes are you have to offer to buy Boeings. Japan is buying 100 Boeings. Indonesia is buying 50 Boeings. You have to make a firm commitment to buy more beef, more US cars, more trucks. So, we need to get out there. We need to offer something that will really grab the attention of President Trump to get this through. What's interesting is that yesterday he said that the lowest flat import levy they'll introduce is 15%. So the 10% is not going to make it. But then also his Commerce Secretary this week said that many countries in Africa would have a baseline tariff of 10%. I've got a feeling we won't be included in that, but that's a very interesting shift.
Yeah, look, there's shifts and stuff, and the problem with the story is that there's no certainty, because there's no clarity, because there's no strong policy driver behind this. It just does seem to be being done on a whim. And I would argue, Helena, if there's one thing that we continue to worry about 12 months from now, it is this real complexity around navigating the whims of the US president.
That's true, but we also have some cards in our pocket. 99% of America's chrome imports come from South Africa. So they are dependent on some of the stuff that we have to offer. If you're clever about it, we can play.
It's nice to know we have at least a card, maybe not the trump card, but a card nevertheless. Helena Wasserman, the business editor of News 24, helping us identify that one thing that matters a year from now. Well, this week has been one of those landmark weeks where a stock exchange hits record levels, and it's a big round number. For the first time ever, the all-share index on the JSE breached the 100,000 level. It happened, it's been threatening to happen for some time, eventually happened on Wednesday and again on Thursday. We had a voice note from a listener this week, which we played earlier on in the show, worrying about a Wall Street Journal article at the weekend, saying that the world is not pricing South African risk properly. Zwelakhe Mnguni is the Chief Investment Officer, the co-founder of Benguela Global Fund Managers. I'm sure you saw that article, Zwelakhe. What's your view on the perceived risk of South Africa and a market that seems to be ignoring it?
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. I think that there is an element of risk, and I think that risk is probably to some extent priced in on the SA Inc. stocks in particular. I think we've seen that the strong rally on the JSE has been driven largely by the precious metals stocks. and a bit of financials that have a broader footprint outside South Africa as well. So if we look at the industrial side, I mean, the last 12 months, I think they're down about 10%, which is the more of a SA Inc. So I do think that there is an element of it priced in. I think there was a lot of high expectations, but that has kind of deflated to some extent.
And again, we've got to be very careful in correlating news flow with stock market levels and outcomes of companies and the profits that companies generate, that they generate all over the world. For example, the Dow Jones Industrial Average recovered very quickly from that first quarter trade tantrum. We've got the FTSE at record levels, the JSE at record levels. And I see lots of signals of market fragility in a fragile world, but the markets seem to be ignoring all of what most of us regard as warning signals. Why does that happen?
Look, I think the markets actually, a lot of it, there is an assumption that the US would cut rates and that would fuel another leg up in global markets performance, so particularly the US and the tech sector in particular. So the real risk is really that we see a significant slowdown in the US economy, and that is coupled with an aggressive or continuation of an aggressive stance on tariffs. I think that is the risk, and I think the market may be discounting that a little bit because we've seen Trump blink a few times in some of his tough stances that he took against other countries. So I do believe that there are sectors in the market that look like they are ignoring that risk, and I think some of the stocks in the US tech, there may be some issues there, but broadly speaking, there are also opportunities in this kind of market. So I don't think it's all going to be a doom and doom if things fall apart.
I laughed out loud when I first saw the statement, the taco trade. Trump always chickens out. And I suppose once Trump hears about Trump always chickens out and the taco trade, him being averse to anything Mexican, he may very well stop chickening out. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We had lots of updates from companies this week, quarterly updates from Vodacom, the Anglo-American stable, including what used to be called Anglo Platinum, now called Valterra, Adcock Ingram, its plans to delist. What's the one standout feature in terms of company news that you've sort of picked up a thread on?
Look, I'd probably say that the improvement in Vodacom was quite pleasing. I think I know that the market didn't react as positively as I would have expected, but I do think that they seem to be gaining momentum. Their operations outside South Africa seem to be contributing quite meaningfully now, and that is something that I thought was fantastic. But also on the Adcock Ingram, I mean, that business has struggled to make headway in the pharmaceutical sector, primarily because they haven't been innovating or developing new drugs at a pace that is that enables them to maybe drive growth. So the fact that they'll be delisted is maybe a sad moment, but also a moment that just highlights that maybe we are not seeing enough investment in the country, and we need a new dispensation in terms of the investment environment from the political leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. As well, Akim Guri, thank you very much. Chief Investment Officer and co-founder at Benguela Global Fund Managers. That 4 billion rand investment, which is what will result as a result of the Indian investment in Adcock Ingram. Yep, it's another company biting the dust as far as the JSE is concerned, but it is also foreign direct investment directly into the pockets of shareholders of Adcock Ingram. You want financial freedom, right? We all want financial freedom. It would be nice to go to bed at night and not to be worrying about whether or not you'll have enough money to outlast you in this lifetime and possibly leave some for someone else. Well, certified financial planner Warren Ingram and I have been building a step-by-step guide to help you do precisely that. In about 3 minutes a week, we'll give you just one action you need to take. And if you follow what we suggest, you will become closer and closer to that goal of achieving financial freedom. Here's Warren.
Step one is just to take stock of where you are. If you're going on a journey, you need to know where you're starting from. It's all good and well that you've got a destination in mind, but you don't know how to get there unless you actually get going with where you're starting from. So today, the first thing to do is take stock. Understand what are the assets that you own? What are the things that you own, whether it's cash in a bank account, money that you've got invested somewhere, write those things down. Write down the assets.
What's an asset? I mean, this is a very nice big speaker. It's got an electric cable. That costs a lot of money. What's an asset and what is just a thing?
The assets are things that you can sell for more than you purchased them for over time. In other words, you buy something today, the plan is that in the next 5 or 10 years, you would be able to sell some or all of that for more money than you paid today. And hopefully it grows faster than your cost of living.
So my house, the house that I live in, I can put that down as an asset.
I think it's just to take stock of what you own, because the next thing we're going to ask you to do is write down your debts. So if you write down a debt of X and you don't have an asset on the other side being your house, then it just looks like you're in a terrible financial position. But if you've got a big house and a small amount of debt to that house, that's a big asset that you've got.
In convoluted language, this is called a balance sheet, right? You put down the things that you own and the things that you owe, and then you try and balance off and you see which one is bigger than the other. And that's just simply assessing your financial position. So it's every account. It is every bank account. It is everything that you own and you owe. Put it down in 2 different columns, total it all up, and check out your financial position.
And our request is that you're brave when you do this, that you're honest. This is your exercise. This is for you. So please write down your position as it is, not how you would like it to be. That's what we're going to. But this is where you are today.
Nobody else is going to see this. And if you lie to yourself at this point, if you think, well, I'm going to be sorting out that little problem of the loan to mum and dad or to the loan to my friend, I'm going to sort that out soon. I'm not going to add it here because it makes me look bad. This isn't about looking good or bad. This is about being honest with yourself and facing up to your financial position, right?
Exactly right. And by subscribing and going on the journey with us, we'll take you to where you want to be.
So Warren, we need one step. The one thing we need to do, get a pen and a piece of paper, make 2 columns. Debts and assets. That's simple, right?
That's all you've got to do.
Warren Ingram and Bruce Whitfield each and every single week, helping you take micro steps toward financial freedom. Our thought for the week this week comes from a position of comparison. If you're somebody who lives on social media a lot, you may look at other people's lives and think to yourself, aren't they lucky? Aren't they successful? I wonder what they did that made them so lucky. I saw a guy the other day who did the thing I was thinking about doing, and I was worried about interest rates, I was worried about politics, I was worried about the environment, I was worried about Donald Trump. I didn't get started. He started it, and now there's no space for me anymore. Well, before we leave you, a favorite quote of mine, this one from a man called Lord Karan Billamoria, the Indian-born British businessman and founder of Cobra Beer, a guest on my other podcast, The Art of Deciding. Lovely quote. Serendipity is seeing what everyone else sees and thinking what nobody else is thinking. Serendipity, seeing what everyone else sees and thinking what no one else is thinking. If you go with the herd mentality, if you respond in the same way to the bad news around you all the time, you're never going to think differently from everybody else, are you? And it's those who think differently in difficult environments who tend to succeed where others simply plod along. It's been wonderful to have you on board as a listener to Bruce Whitfield's Business Week. Episode 2 is done and dusted. Remember, we do want to hear from you. Send us a short voice note, about 20 seconds. Tell us who you are, ask us your question, make your comment on our dedicated Business Week hotline, the WhatsApp number 072 562 3179. Thank you for listening to Business Week on News 24, powered by Capitec, the business bank for everyone. For now, bye-bye.